For thousands of years, one story has stood as a powerful testament to faith. The Israelites march, trumpets blare, and the mighty walls of Jericho just crumble. It's the Bible's first great miracle of conquest. But what if the whole thing is a deception? What if the ground beneath the ancient city tells a completely different story? For over a century, archaeologists have been digging at the site of ancient Jericho, and their findings don't just call the miracle into question. They pretty much erase it from history. This is the Jericho deception, the foundation of faith. To get what's going on, you first have to know the legend. The story, from the book of Joshua, is one of the most dramatic tales in the Old Testament. After 40 years wandering in the desert, the Israelites are finally at the edge of the Promised Land. But there's a big problem. The massive walled city of Jericho is blocking their path. From a human standpoint, taking the city is impossible. But the Israelites have a secret weapon. God gives their leader, Joshua, a strange set of instructions. For 6 days, the army is to march around the city once, completely silent, with 7 priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant and blowing ram's horns. Then, on the 7th day, they're to circle the city 7 times. When the trumpets sound one last time, the whole nation has to let out a huge shout. The story goes that they follow the instructions perfectly, and as they shout, the impossible happens. The towering walls of Jericho fell down flat. The Israelites rush in, and a new nation is born in a miracle. For millions of people, this story is more than just history. It's a cornerstone of their faith. The New Testament's book of Hebrews even says, "By faith, the walls of Jericho fell." It's held up as the ultimate proof that faith and obedience can conquer anything. For centuries, nobody questioned it. The only proof anyone needed was the scripture itself. But then, in the 20th century, we started digging for the truth. The ancient city of Jericho, known today as Tel es-Sultan, is an archaeologist's dream. It's one of the oldest continuously inhabited places on the planet, a layer cake of human history going back 10,000 years. In the 1930s, a British archaeologist named John Garstang began excavating the site, specifically seeking the city Joshua conquered, and he was sure he found it. Garstang dug up a network of collapsed mud brick walls that had obviously been destroyed by a massive fire. He found storerooms still full of burnt grain, suggesting the city was taken so quickly that the conquerors didn't even have time to loot it, exactly as the book of Joshua describes. By examining the pottery he found in the ruins, Garstang confidently announced that the destruction occurred around 1400 BCE. That date was like an electric shock. If you read the Bible's own timeline literally, that was the exact moment Joshua and the Israelites should have shown up. Garstang declared he'd found scientific proof of the Bible story. Newspapers all over the world ran headlines celebrating the find. For a little while, it seemed like science had finally confirmed one of the Bible's biggest miracles. But the party didn't last long. The walls that weren't there. Fast forward 2 decades to the 1950s. Another British archaeologist, Kathleen Kenyon, arrives at Jericho, and she brought a much more advanced and careful scientific method with her. Kenyon was a pioneer in analyzing stratigraphy, the different layers of dirt and debris that build up over centuries. By carefully picking apart these layers, she could create a much more accurate timeline of the city's history. And what she found sent a shockwave through the world of biblical archaeology. Those fallen walls Garstang found, the ones he dated to 1400 BCE, they were from the wrong time period. Kenyon's more detailed analysis proved that the massive defensive walls of Jericho had actually been destroyed around 1550 BCE. That's a full 150 years before the absolute earliest date Joshua could have arrived. This destruction was probably caused by the Egyptians during a campaign to kick out the Hyksos rulers from the area. So, What was going on in Jericho when Joshua and the Israelites were supposed to have been there? Kenyon's answer was devastating. During the late Bronze Age, the time of the biblical conquest, Jericho was a small, poor settlement. It didn't have any massive walls. In her words, it was just a straggling and unwalled village. Maybe they reused some old, broken-down walls, but there was nothing remotely like the mighty fortress described in the book of Joshua. The conclusion was sharp and inescapable. The walls of Jericho didn't fall for Joshua, because by the time he would have arrived, they'd already been a pile of rubble for more than a century. There were no mighty walls to come tumbling down. The dating game and the last stand. Kenyon's conclusions quickly became the overwhelming consensus among mainstream archaeologists, and that consensus still holds up today. But the story doesn't end there. The idea that Jericho could prove the Bible was just too powerful for some people to let go. In the 1990s, an archaeologist named Bryant Wood challenged Kenyon's work. He claimed she'd made a huge mistake. Wood argued that Kenyon based her dating on the fact that she didn't find specific types of expensive, imported pottery, but that she had been digging in a poor part of the city where no one could have afforded it anyway. Wood went back and looked at the local pottery that was found and, siding with Garstang, argued that the 1400 BCE destruction date was the correct one after all. He pointed back to the discovery of the unlooted burnt grain jars as evidence that perfectly matched the biblical account of a swift springtime conquest. For a little while, this reignited the debate, especially in faith-based circles eager to see the Bible proven right. However, Wood's position is still a minority view and is largely rejected by the wider scholarly community. Later on, radiocarbon dating of grain from that same destruction layer confirmed Kenyon's earlier date of around 1550 BCE, not Wood's 1400 BCE. The most recent excavations, led by Italian archaeologist Lorenzo Nigro from 1997 into the 2020s, have made the picture more complex, but ultimately support Kenyon's main conclusion. Nigro's team has confirmed that Jericho was occupied during the late Bronze Age, but it was a smaller, less important town. They found that some older fortifications might have been reused, but they confirmed there was no massive fortified city and zero evidence of a huge destruction that lines up with the story in the book of Joshua. The consensus remains solid. The archaeology just doesn't support the biblical story. The Jericho deception. So if the walls didn't fall, where did the story even come from? The Jericho deception isn't about someone deliberately lying. It's about the power of myth-making. The most likely explanation is that the story of Joshua at Jericho is what scholars call an etiological legend, a story created to explain why things are the way they are. For centuries, ancient Israelites traveling through the Jordan Valley would have seen the huge, mysterious ruins at Tel Sultan. They would have seen the bases of enormous ancient walls, all tumbled down and destroyed. They had no idea these walls were from a civilization that existed 1,000 years before their time. So, they did what all cultures do. They made up a story to explain the ruins. They wove a tale that turned a pile of anonymous rubble into a monument of their own history and their own God. The story of Joshua's incredible conquest gave them an epic, foundational myth, a powerful account of their divine right to the land, and a timeless lesson in the power of faith. The story wasn't meant to be a lie. It was a way for them to make sense of their world. The real deception happens now when we try to cram this powerful ancient myth into a modern box of literal scientific history. The stones of Jericho do tell a story, just not the one in the book of Joshua. They tell a story of deep time, of earthquakes, of empires rising and falling, and of the very human need to create meaning from the ruins of the past. In the end, the evidence on the ground is clear. The Jericho from the Bible, a mighty city whose walls fell down at the sound of a shout, didn't exist when Joshua was supposed to have been there. Archaeology shows us a much smaller, mostly unfortified settlement, and those impressive collapsed walls you can still see are from a much, much older time. This doesn't have to be seen as an attack on faith. For many people, the power of the Jericho story is in its moral and spiritual lesson, not whether it's historically accurate. But understanding the archaeology lets us separate a foundational myth from verifiable history. It encourages us to read ancient texts with a more critical and informed eye, appreciating them for what they are, not just what we wish they were. The Jericho deception is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most incredible stories lie buried right under our feet. What do you think? Can a story be spiritually true, even if it's not historically factual? Let us know in the comments. And for more deep dives into history, myth, and archaeology, make sure you're subscribed.